Who's the most criminal in the amazing Digital Circus? Is it Caine? Jax? Pomni? You'll be surprised to know that even Gangle has committed crimes. Let's find out what would happen if the characters of the amazing Digital Circus were charged for their crimes.
Welcome to the amazing Digital Circus!
From the beginning, Caine is already committing a serious crime. Flying flower pots? Seriously? It almost knocked Pomni's head off. This circus is full of dangers everywhere. Glitched structures, fragile floors, and unstable objects. This, my friends, is a major risk for the amazing circus and anyone inside it. Luckily, Pomni is still alive, so for the negligence of having such a dangerous circus, Caine undoubtedly deserves a $50,000 fine and the closure of his Digital Circus, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't even have a license to operate it. Let's also give him an additional 5 years in prison for that.
We stay right here, where I can keep my hundreds of all-seeing eyes on you!
Hundreds of all-seeing eyes? Caine, you're crazier than today's psycho girlfriends. I can't even imagine that even in the bathroom, Caine watches you doing your stuff. As soon as I saw one of his all-seeing eyes spying on me, I'd jab it immediately.
Jab.
Although, I think Caine only said that as a joke, since in several occasions when something happened in the circus or he wanted to find a character, he had no idea what was going on or where they were. But just for saying it and not confirming it was a joke, Caine is considered a stalker. So let's give him 3 more years in prison for being a peeping eye.
They're small.
And what do they do? And how do they...
Well, honestly friends, what can we expect from Caine? Blowing up bubbles seems to be one of his favorite things to do, as if it relieves his stress. And well, killers don't get away with murdering people just because it relieves their stress, right? So for this, we count this action as a murder. Luckily, Bubble can revive. So for continually popping Bubble, Caine gets 20 years in prison. Apparently, everything in Caine's digital world is negligent, because what about these trick doors? Is he trying to send someone to the digital heaven? He doesn't even put up a sign to warn them about the rocky punch they're about to get in the face. This is not Jackass 3, Caine. He doesn't even care if they fall into the void. This has crossed the line. So for being reckless and putting others in danger, he deserves to have his circus shut down again, a $2,000 fine and 3 years in prison. Does Caine have imprisoned monkeys? This just shows that Caine only cares about having fun regardless of others suffering. And keeping poor digital monkeys imprisoned doesn't seem very legal, does it? We count this as animal abuse, and for mistreating animals, he gets 4 years in prison. Plus, we know Caine has no permits or documents, so let's add another 10 years and a $3,000 fine.
Oh no! Someone's venturing out into the void!
What up, my friend? Why aren't you minding your business? The Digital Circus explodes, and Caine is completely oblivious? He's happily stuffing his face and having fun at the restaurant. This is a severe case of negligence. He almost lost his circus. And for being careless and once again endangering others, we give him 10 years in prison.
And into the cellar you go!
Who does Caine think he is, locking everyone up? Keeping the abstracted ones captive instead of helping them is a form of torture, apart from illegally depriving them of their freedom. For playing God and toying with everyone's lives like this, the toothy villain gets 25 years in prison.
So this is the circus, huh? I gotta get used to this.
Oh, looks like one of these guys made it through!
Wait, what?
Well. We see that nothing moves Caine, not even a crocodile regretful of his actions. Caine was so ruthless that he didn't care to torture poor Pomni with such a horrible scene. What's wrong with this maniac? Let's see how many therapy sessions it'll take the Pomni to recover from this. And for homicide and torture, he gets the death penalty and has to pay for all of Pomni's psychological consultations. And no, Caine, you can't give her therapy yourself. In fact, we should issue a restraining order against Pomni because of all the harms he's caused her. So Caine ends up with a long list of 6 crimes. Caine will have to pay $55,000 in fines, face the closure of his Digital Circus twice, get a restraining order for Pomni, spend 80 years in prison, and receive the death sentence. Jax is one of the characters who caused the most crimes within the Digital Circus, and his overly pessimistic attitude made him quite the bad boy. First of all, he loves to destroy Gangle's masks, not just once, but 3 times throughout each episode, and he'll probably destroy her comedy mask by episode 4 too. And remember, we're not counting the trailers they gave us for the Digital Circus, where he committed a few serious crimes. So, for property destruction and bullying, Jax will have to pay for all of Gangle's masks and do a year of community service, along with therapy to neutralize his anger towards others. Are you telling me that Jax finds it normal to mutilate poor Zubul? Well, friends, in reality Zubul doesn't feel any pain when her pieces are removed, since Zubul can swap parts and take new forms and shapes. So we'll just consider this as a bad joke. And he's completely forgiven, since Zubul gets revenge by choking him violently.
Nah, I've got keys everywhere, and you've all been fine. By the way, I may have left something in your room today.
Oh my! Can you imagine living in the Digital Circus knowing that Jax could enter your room at any time? Well, he's been sneaking into everyone's rooms to spy on what they're doing and what they like. My friends, this is called invasion of property and trespassing. For that, Jax gets a 2-year sentence and a $2,000 fine. And here we have one of Jax's most violent scenes. Not only does he throw a bowling ball at poor Kinger and Gangle, causing them to fall into the void, but when he arrives, he causes all the bowling pin Gloinks to suffer, even kicking them and destroying the bowling sign. So, for double assault and property destruction, Jax gets 10 years in prison and a $200 fine for the sign. Lastly, in the first episode, we have another assault he committed against poor Gangle. Come on, Jax, what do you have against Gangle? 5 years in prison.
Alright, Gangle, when we catch up to him, I'll jump over, crawl inside, and shoot him repeatedly until they're unrecognizable.
Friends, I'm pretty sure Caine wouldn't be happy to know that Jax possesses illegal weapons inside the Digital Circus. Not to mention the death threats against the Gummy bandits. So, for illegal weapon possession and death threats, we give him 9 years in prison. And once again, Jax endangers one of his companions. In this case, poor Pomni. To make things worse, this scoundrel wanted to use her as a bridge, not caring that she was suffering. So, for torture and negligence, Jax gets another 7 years in prison. And right after this, Jax decides to assault the Gummy crocodile. And I know these bandits are supposed to be the criminals here, but Jax has no proof of that. What if they were just on a field trip? Still, Jax shoots a boot at its head. For assaulting this bandit, Jax gets another 5 years in prison.
Hey, Gangle, you should ram into him. Do it, or I'll tell Ragatha about the figurine thing.
Wow, Jax, still bullying poor Gangle? Well, in this case, it was a very violent threat. He practically forced poor Gangle to risk everyone's lives just so he wouldn't reveal her big secret. For coercion, Jax gets 12 years in prison.
Oh, hey, maybe I didn't leave the gate unlocked for nothing after all.
And just when we thought it was over, Jax decided to commit a terrorist act by leaving the Candy Kingdom open so the Fudge could commit genocide again. This makes Jax an accomplice and a terrorist. With this, we sentence Jax to the death penalty and a $2 million fine for all the destruction that will occur in the kingdom. Friends, I know this ghost is an NPC, Or it might not even be alive because it's a ghost. But the poor thing was explaining what they were gonna do, and Jax just sucked them up with a vacuum. Most likely the little ghost is still trapped inside the vacuum, so we'll count this as an assault, adding 5 more years to his prison sentence. This leaves Jax with a total of 9 crimes. Jax will have to pay for Gangle's masks, perform community service, serve 55 years in prison, pay a hefty fine of $2,002,200, and face a death sentence. And the next character who has to pay for their crimes is none other than Pomni. But what? Wasn't Pomni just going crazy? Well friends, it's thanks to this madness that Pomni accidentally committed some crimes without realizing it. But the law is the law, and Pomni has to pay. First of all, right when she arrives at the Digital Circus, she accidentally breaks Gangle's comedy masks, so of course she'll have to pay for it.
Help me out here! I'm sorry!
Oh, Pomni, you were in front of someone who urgently needed help, and you just decided to run away? That, my friends, is also a crime, and could even be seen as being an accomplice to Kaufmo for seeing everything and doing nothing about it. So, for complicity and failure to render aid, we'll give Pomni 12 years in prison. I know Pomni just wanted to leave the Digital Circus to return home, but friends, she's in another world with different rules, and most likely by entering the exit, she committed a crime of trespassing. Maybe Caine wasn't very clear about why he kept those doors hidden, but it was clear enough that they shouldn't approach the unknown in the Digital Circus. So, for going where she shouldn't and endangering her life, we're giving Pomni a 5-year sentence. And friends, we won't count the reckless driving Pomni did to return to the map, as thanks to that she saved the NPC. But we will count the negligent homicide she committed against the poor Fudge. Yes, I know it only died for a few minutes and then revived to commit genocide. But was he dead for a moment? Yes. So, for negligent homicide, Pomni gets 6 years in prison. In total, Pomni has to pay for the following crimes. Pomni will have to pay for Gangle's mask and serve 23 years in prison. Friends, with Kaufmo, I'm gonna need your help, because I'm not pretty sure if we should judge him, as he was abstracted and probably didn't know what he was doing. But still, let's count his crimes. Wow, when you're abstracted you become very violent. Kaufmo is gonna have to serve a long time in prison. Right after that, he makes a violent attempt to kill Ragatha, and then continues chasing Pomni to try to destroy her. And along his way, he destroys this hallway and other areas within the Digital Circus. So, for all these crimes, Kaufmo will have to pay with 2 life sentences and $50,000 digital dollars for the destruction he caused. Whoa, I didn't expect to see something like this in this show, friends. You could say Kaufmo took the life of a monkey and a Gloink. So, for animal abuse, Kaufmo will have to pay with 8 years in prison. This scene got very violent with Kaufmo. If our good friend had fought against Rocky, he'd probably had given him a good beating, friends. So, for assault and aggression against the Gloink Queen, Kaufmo gets a death penalty. In total, Kaufmo will have to pay for the following crimes. Kaufmo will have to serve 8 years in prison, pay a hefty fine of $50,000, serve 2 life sentences, and face a death penalty. As As incredible as it sounds, Gangle only committed one crime during her appearance in the Digital Circus. And it's in episode 2, when Jax forces Gangle to perform reckless driving and put everyone's lives at risk. And yes, we know Jax threatened her, but Gangle is practically telling us that her secret was worth more than everyone's lives. So for this, Gangle will have to serve 4 years in prison. These little friends sure caused a lot of trouble during her short time in the Digital Circus. To start, they stole many things from the main hall of the circus. We saw cheeses, decorations, and many other things. But I think the worst of all was when they mutilated Subul. Not only that, but also kidnapped her in front of everyone. And to top it all off, they had to give Jax a punch to the face, which she actually deserved. So for kidnapping, mutilation, theft, and assault, the Gloinks have to serve 28 years in prison, plus a life sentence, because they left poor Subul looking worse than a broken Lego.
Everything must be Gloinks. I am Gloinks. You will be Gloinks.
So the Gloink Queen was a ruthless ruler, huh? She wanted to dominate the entire digital world and turn everyone into Gloinks. These, my friends, are war crimes, for which the Gloink Queen receives the death penalty. Let's not forget about these acts she committed. It could be seen as cannibalism, and for that, she'll have to serve 20 years in prison and be dethroned as the Queen of the Gloinks. In total, the Gloinks and their queen will have to pay for the following crimes. The Gloinks and their queen will have to serve 48 years in prison, a life sentence, a death sentence, and the queen will be dethroned. And speaking of queens, we have to talk about Princess Loolilalu. She only committed one crime in her appearance.
Way to go head-to-head with them is to give you a war rig of your own.
Oh yes, that poor NPC ended up as a pancake. This gives her a death penalty. The Gummy bandits only got violent at one point while they were driving, and for this reckless driving and attempted murder, they'll have to serve 15 years in prison and face a death sentence. And we can't forget our good friend, the Fudge.
Princess, after I ate too many of the delicious town folk.
Oh, God. That just sounds like murder.
Phew! Ragatha herself tells us that this was genocide, which carries a death sentence. Although, let's remember that in the end, he didn't care about this and committed another genocide with Jack's help. In total, the Fudge lives with 2 death sentences. And well, tell us friends, who do you think should be saved from all these sentences? Do you think Kaufmo should go free for being considered mentally ill? Tell us what other show or movie you'd like us to sentence next. See you in the comments!